in a fight here. You're in a cage fight, right? I'm next to Elon Musk.
Please.
He's having an episode. He's deeply uncomfortable. There's something about people who've been sitting on something that just makes them go.
Are there interviews that stand out to you where you leave going, this is the craziest shit I've ever heard?
A guy told me in great detail how he had to kill a prisoner and take out the heart and eat it. And what I did find was weird is that he said there was no peri-peri, and nowadays, I'm not joking, okay, I'm not joking. Help, I need a soundbite. I think he was an okay person who ended up doing a bad thing. And I think that's the case with most people, and I can see the look on your face, you're going, yeah. But I think you have to understand people as being nuanced.
Who's the most famous person in your phone book?
I do have one politician's number. I wouldn't call him a celebrated person, but a famous person, a well-known person, Donald Trump.
Oh, you've got Donnie's number?
I do.
Let's call him. Now, if South African journalism had a starting 11, Annika Larsen wouldn't just be in it. She'd be the coach, the defense, the midfield, the striker. Man, she'd be running commentary from the box. We'll get into the ethics, the pressure, the door-stopping, the Oval Office. We'll get into the space where journalism meets access and access meets power. So the question is, in a country where everyone is trying to control the narrative, what happens if the one that's asking the questions is the one no one can control? This is the Politically Aweh podcast. Let's get away. Annika, welcome.
Thank you. I'm interested to know how you're going to introduce me.
Oh, we wrote the whole thing.
Did you? Okay,
We wrote
as
soon as you leave, I'm gonna read it all like with my best Afrikaans high school English.
Okay, I nearly failed Afrikaans in school. Okay, when people see me, they go, "Môre, middag," and I'm like, "Yeah, morning." My Afrikaans is appalling, and I'm very sad and sorry about that. But the school, you see, I'm just taking things away. Like, I didn't even let you get started. Okay, but the school I went to was very anti-Afrikaans.
Oh.
So it was seen as being, you didn't really need to make a big effort to because it was it was a school that had black and white kids in it.
Yeah.
So we'd get a lot of bomb threats from so-called like Boeramach types, whatever. So Afrikaans was bad. So the Afrikaans I know is like Cape Flats Afrikaans.
Oh, there were those? I didn't know there were those.
Yeah.
I grew up in Pretoria. I thought all white people speak Afrikaans.
No, not this one.
When I found out that there were other white people that didn't know Afrikaans, it was the culture shock of my life at the time.
Well, the Afrikaans I learned was actually from one of the controllers at Cape Talk, where I first started working, one of my first jobs. And he came from Manenberg, and his Afrikaans was pretty edgy.
Yeah.
And so I learned Afrikaans. So Walid, shout out, I love that guy. He taught me the Afrikaans that I know. So yeah.
That's very interesting. I mean, you studied journalism in the age of Pagat and
that's where I started.
And gang violence. How does that shape you, bro?
It was a really good incubator because I learned that for access, you need to treat everybody as equals. It doesn't matter who they are. And I also tend to go in thinking that even people who are seen as morally corrupt, in some ways they could be a better person than you. I know that sounds weird. So I always go in with a really authentic humility. And I was moved from crime and courts to parliament, which was a natural progression during the state capture years, because there is a parallel between a gang boss and a corrupt politician, right? We're seeing it now. I'm sorry, but it's true. So I don't know why they picked me to go to parliament, but so I came off those streets and then I went to parliament. So gangsters, politicians, whoever you are, you get treated the same. And I think that's how I get access to people. I presume so. I don't know.
That's it. Like, we've seen you interview gangsters. We've seen you interview politicians. How do you get these dudes to trust you this quick?
I think I have a genuine, I wouldn't say empathy, but I have a genuine understanding, I think, of the human condition, which is life is nuanced, and people are, often in court. I've done, the Oscar Pistorius trial. I did the Baby Jordan trial. I've done so many terrible murder trials, and usually okay people end up doing bad things. Yeah. There's only one or two cases where I'd say there was like a severe psychiatric, case where there was a serial rapist or a child rapist or, something really so heinous that you can't understand it. But generally, for instance, the man who killed Marika de Klerk, Luyanda Mboniswa, I think he was an okay person who ended up doing a bad thing. And I think that's the case with most people. And I can see the look on your face. You're going, yeah. But I think you have to understand people as being nuanced. You cannot be good or bad. You are neither. You are good, you're bad, and you're somewhat in between. And so for me, to think that I'm a better person morally than somebody else or worse than somebody else is just, I think, misunderstood of humanity.
Yeah, but you're a politician involved in, corruption that takes money away from the poor, or you're a gangster that's killed a lot of people, that sort of thing, or you're selling drugs to children. Isn't that generally, that's not a person being bad.
Look, I'm not there to be their friends, I'm not there to make friends with them, but I have understood along the way that, especially with politicians, okay, a lot of politicians and corruption, it's maladministration. They're really bad at admin and they choose to look away. But with the really corrupt ones, and this goes for the gangs as well, you sometimes get into an environment where when everybody else is doing it, it starts to feel okay. Yeah. And if you put yourself in that position, I'm not excusing it at all. I think it's repugnant. It's a terrible thing to do. But when everybody is taking a BMW or Mercedes or fancy car, when everybody is saying yes to Bosasa, build some, like fencing for us, it's okay, so-and-so's doing it.
Feel left out.
Then it's kind of like, and I get that sense from Zuma, and he hasn't been found guilty, so please let him not sue me. But I kind of got the sense, I went to China with him in 2004, and he's a brilliant strategist and diplomat, let me tell you. And I found him sort of becoming hardened and bitter over time throughout that corruption trial and up to recently. And I think that he got the sense that, look, there were a lot of people, a lot of my comrades were doing this, and I was the one who got caught. And I think there's a sense of bitterness about everybody was doing it, so why can't I? And so I think there's that kind of cauldron, that pot that you get caught up into, and it's sticky and it's somewhat addictive, and it happens. I think it's very hard to be morally inflexible. Although I think I'm pretty upstanding, but I would just, I would like to say that I try and understand people rather than judge them. And I think maybe they get the sense that that's what I'm trying to do. I don't lecture them. I don't shout at them. I don't, I'll call them out when they're bullshitting me. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
I'll call them out. Yeah. Like I've called out Gayton McKenzie, and like there was a mini drama. But I'll say, please don't talk cuck. Seriously,
How do you do that? How do you look at a minister directly and go, are you an alcoholic?
Okay, I didn't say that to someone, by the way. Somebody asked me earlier if I said that to a particular minister who's passed away, RIP. Because there's no question I don't think there's any question that is a holy cow. It's my job. I won't ask something unkindly, is it true that your child, I don't know, something, I mean, when you're dealing with elderly people, children, I think there's a level of sensitivity. Yeah. But it's the way you ask it. It's not the question, it's the way you ask it.
You're known for asking like tough questions with a smile. Is this journalism or manipulation?
You see, you're asking me like, I mean, that is a pretty crappy question, right? But you're asking it you're asking it in a nice way. So I'm not offended.
No, I'm not a journalist.
I think, look, it was very interesting. I went to Turkey for this car power ship interview with a very, very smart CEO of car power ship. And she had studied every single interview that I had done. And so she knew exactly how I did. She got media training from a top former editor of mine. And she said to me, "Ooh, you're a nice lady with knife behind back." And I was like, yeah, because I know that you're lying to me and I don't appreciate it. So let's just put your cards on the table. I said it in a nice way, but I think a person has a right not to answer a question and a person has a right to say yes or no. And most of the time, with people in positions of power, they can't help but talk. Yeah. There's also something that a cop taught me years ago on one of the first crime scenes I was at. He said every time they arrest a suspect, the suspect gets in the car. The minute that door closes, they sing like canaries. Oh. And they actually have to say to them sometimes, "Shut up, like, wait for your lawyer, like, keep quiet." There's something about people who've been sitting on something that just makes them go.
Are there interviews that stand out to you where you leave going, "This is the craziest shit I've ever heard"?
Not really. Nothing shocks me. I mean, a guy, Magdalene Wenzel, who lives in Manenberg for Gangland season 1, he told me in great detail how he had to kill a prisoner and rip open someone's body, hack it open, the rib cage, and take out the heart and eat it. And I mean, like, I understood the situation. What I did find was weird is that he said there was no peri-peri, and nowadays, I'm not joking. Okay, I'm not joking. Nowadays he said, like, there would be peri-peri. I know this sounds hilarious, but I was like, I'm like taking this in, and I'm like going, like, what did it taste like? I'm so interested. Like, did it taste porky? Did it taste like, what did it taste like? I'm so interested that I'm not, I don't get shocked easily by anything.
The people watching this thing are going, "Oh snap, the queen of doorstop interviews cleans up dog shit. This is crazy." But you're known as the queen of...
I don't think of myself, I don't think does anyone really think of themselves as being that great?
The people that you work with think that you're that great.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish I'd known that sooner.
For interest, for somebody who doesn't know, what is a doorstop interview?
Look, I mean, doorstop is where you literally run up to the person and you shout a question at them.
Yeah.
I used to hate doing it, but I was forced into doing it. In fact, I had this crazy assignments editor who would say, if you don't doorstop the person, I want video of you doorstopping that person. So I would have to come back with a video of me trying to doorstop that person. So eventually it just became like a thing. And when I am shouting and doorstopping, and I know where you're going with this, I know what's coming next, but I know what you're going to ask me. But when I doorstop a person, I can hear this squeaky little voice, "Mr. President." Yeah. And I sound like some freaking Fresno auntie, like Sea Point auntie, which I am. That's where I live. And I hear my voice and I think, fuck, that's awful.
Doesn't it like eat your soul when
I
you're
can't
like,
bear
when
to
you're
hear
trying
my voice. I can't
then...
bear to hear my voice. It's just so irritating. But I had to do it. And I got the best interviews of my political career. I'd say I got through doing that.
At the beginning of the doorstops, because sometimes I have to do it as well. When you're busy trying to shout a question and they're not even looking at you, How does that feel? I think for me, like the thing that like hurts my soul the most is when I'm like, Mr. President!
Yeah.
And they're just moving like the voice doesn't even exist.
So they're hearing you. They're absolutely hearing you. And I've asked a couple of them, what's going on in that situation. And that's very much a situation where they actually just cannot say anything. They have been told or they've been given instructions to shut it. And so they are hearing everything. Most of them will acknowledge you and just go like, hello, or how are you? Or they know who you are. They, whatever. But they are in a compromised position where they cannot say anything, So, Mr. President, are you going to the G20? Plans on the air. They don't know yet. France has withdrawn the invitation. I'm just using this as hypothetically, but the president can't answer. So then try and move in with something else. Mr. President, how are you enjoying Washington at the moment? He can answer that, okay? So then you've got him. I'm giving away all my tricks here. But then you've made the eye contact, you've got it, and then you can sometimes slip something in.
Oh, that's so dope. Thank you for that. Now, that's the question. You're in Washington. The president comes out. And then Eddie Blofanensa, you start screaming, halala, Mr. President. Why did you go with halala?
Like, why is that so fucking funny? Okay? Like, okay, let me can we paint the scene? Can I paint the scene?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So Washington was like being in a cage fight, okay?
Yes.
It was rough because the pressure that was on to get sound bites and to get your questions answered in the Oval Office, it was like a fight to the death.
All right.
There was nothing elegant about it. There was no decorum. And as the president's car drove up, I mean, the Americans, they're quite heavy going in that particular situation. Security, all that sort of thing. Yes. And as our president, we'd been under such attack. And as our president drove up, I actually felt excited, like Papa's coming home kind of thing. Like, someone can rescue us if something happens, okay? Like, you see Vincent from the president's office and the support team, and they genuinely are very nice people. Yes. But it's like, one of our people has come, arrived, because I was there for quite a while before doing a documentary on U.S. trade relations or whatever. So in that moment, I had to shout something. We had Americans shouting. We had I had to think of a word that would let the president know that a South African wanted his attention.
Yes.
Okay, so now what am I going to say?
Viva ANC, viva. I don't know.
No, then the Twitterati will be like, oh, ANC hack says, ANC viva, okay? So that's
Tumamina newspaper group, something like that.
Then I'm in love with the president. Tumamina, and I still believe Tumamina, and that was all bullshit, and we all bought into that Tumamina crap, and she still believes it, okay? Yeah. Next. So that was the first thing of I was saying, hi, we here, help. I need a soundbite, and I need a South African person, and you are the South African person that I need to speak to right now. I need your attention right now. I don't know what else. That was just popped into my head as something. And he turned and he was like, hi, how, it worked. But when I got onto X, just why did I go on? I just any which way, anything that I said, I was going to be in the shit about. But I don't know. What would you have said?
I don't know.
I mean, you said, okay, just say you got a whole lot of voices. They're 50 of you going, Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President.
I was watching, I heard halala. Halala? It worked. Listen. I think that moment became that crazy because none of us would have gone with halal.
Like, so what would you have gone with?
I don't know.
Molweni.
Like it feels like one of those moments, and I get you as that. Like it feels like one of those moments where you had to be there. Is it a thing where in that space, I mean, you're also a South African. Is it a thing where in that space in particular, there's some sort of patriotism that shoots in, and you're like, I'm kind of like at war, or I'm kind of like in a tension against this, and I have to kind of like choose the country.
Are we going into the Oval Office now?
We're going there, yeah.
So in that situation, okay, let me paint the picture again. It's pouring with rain. I paid $200 for a blow dry, which, I mean, that was a waste of money. Okay, so I'm running around with a plastic bag over my head. A friend of mine had said to me, you must wear something that stands out, okay? Yeah. Because this is a scrum. The Oval Office is a scrum. So it's a very small room, and it's a hostile environment. Caroline Levitt she is incredibly hostile. So I'd sold the suit of mine to the second-hand shop because it was peppermint. It was like a peppermint blue. I looked like I was a washed-up old bag from Mar-a-Lago, okay? That is how I looked. I was wearing this peppermint, or I looked like a massive mint popsicle. I don't know which of the two is worse, but that is how I looked, okay? So I got the suit back from the second-hand shop, and I'm tottering around in the rain in this like peppermint blue turquoise suit. I mean, anyway, but the point, she made a good point, because I did stand out. I was just this big peppermint, like standing in the room. But you do sense I'm South African, and we are being hated on, and this is just blatantly untrue, right? But I also realized I'm a journalist. I'm not here to be an activist. Yeah. And I think that some people got that confused, because it is your job. I still believe in reporting the facts. Yeah. You can editorialize afterwards and do that, but in the actual place, you need to report as fact. I'm still a believer in that. And I think I did have the sense of the discomfort I could see the president was feeling. Although I know that there'd been rehearsals the night before, or I was told there were rehearsals and scenario planning the night before. And if worst came to worst, and this is unverified, so I don't know if it's true, but that if Donald Trump had become particularly abusive or hostile, the president would politely and elegantly stand up and say, Mr. President, I think our time is over. That was what I was told. As I can say, from the president's office, so cool. But he was going to. I think the idea was that our president Ramaphosa keep a sense of dignity at all times. Yes. So I know he had that under control. When we were shouting the questions and all that kind of thing, I knew that I was not going to change Donald Trump's mind. Yeah. As much as I shouted, as much as people were shouting, there is no white genocide in South Africa, blah, 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 whatever. The guy's not going to go, oh, okay, yes, you're right. Like, he's not going to do that, right? Yeah. So you need to come up with a question, and you're in a fight here. You're in a cage fight, right? I'm next to Elon Musk.
Yes.
And he's having an episode. He's deeply uncomfortable. I don't know exactly what was going on there, but I saw him stimming. I could see there was a neurodiverse situation going on, and I think he's very uncomfortable in a very squashed, crowded environment. So I felt some empathy for the guy. And then Caroline said to me eventually that I had to move to the other side, but I couldn't get to the other side. You have to, in order to go past the desk with the red telephone on it. Yeah. Which I think is to call for Diet Coke. Like, I know we all think it's a nuclear button, but anyway, you have to be escorted. But now the press conference is going on, and I can't move. Yes. So I had to get like one of the guys on the other. So I leopard crawl round to the other side. Now all hell breaks loose. Like, oh my God, like this is a terrorist act. Okay. Oh, all the while, the situation was rough. And the president did ask, the president of the United States, Trump, he did answer 3 questions of mine, which was quite good going, like thumbs up. But they were questions, he responded to me, but he didn't answer the questions directly.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I asked, which was misinterpreted on X again, was, if what you say is true, because that is his truth, right?
Yes.
He's not going to believe our story,
Yes.
which his truth of this white genocide thing is complete crap. We all know that. But if that is the situation, what steps would you like President Ramaphosa to take right now? Let's get practical here.
Yeah.
Like, the rest was just rhetoric. Like, I wanted to get, so somebody said on X, like, oh, I had said there is white genocide. I didn't say that. That's crap. But yes, everything gets confused. It's all turbulent. But I literally felt like afterwards, like after the whole Farrago fiasco, I was like, oh my God, this is exhausting. And then we had to rush in the rain to the embassy where the president was having a press conference. Yeah. And then I knew I had to doorstop him as well. And the president's officer said to me, please do not doorstop the president after this. Like, after this meeting. Like, do not do it. But I knew I had to do it. And so I was like, shit, okay, like, I'm going to be in such trouble here, like, whatever. And I spoke to the president. I did get him. And I waited, like, in the rain. And I said to him, you know, how was that? And he said, I thought this was a very interesting answer. He looked slightly unnerved. And he said, I knew I was sitting in a room with a lot of power. And I think that's a very good description, because the rest of it was kind of farcical, but it was a room that held a lot of power. And that is something I wish I had taken in at the time of many stories that I've done.
You've done them. Donald Trump, President Zuma, Ansikronies, bribery. Which one? Janusz Walush.
Ooh, that was.
How do you prepare?
That was hard.
How do you prepare for the murderer of Chris Hani? That is crazy.
That was the hardest interview that I've ever done.
How do you prepare for it?
So the Chris Hani assassination is partly why I became a journalist.
Oh.
I remember when it happened, there was this, like, my household became quiet. It was just like, something very bad has happened. Like, that's what I knew about. Like, nobody spoke about apartheid. Like, even my friends at school, my black friends, like, that sounds stupid, but my fellow learners, whatever, friends at school, like, we didn't talk about that stuff. Really. But I saw the news and I saw the body lying, and I remember feeling like something very bad had happened. And nobody would tell me what had actually happened. And there's nothing worse for me than not knowing the truth about something that's going on. And I don't believe in truth, by the way. Like, I think they're different truths. So that's another thing. But I thought to myself, stuff this. Like, I actually want to know what's going on. Like, what happened? I went to school. Everyone just said, no, something very bad happened. Like, very bad.
Bad things are happening in South Africa.
Like, very bad things are happening. And then I was like, and then I realized, like, no, I want to be in the front, and I want to know what's going on. So then move forward to years and years later, Chris Hani, it's the commemoration of his death, and I think 2013 or something. And there was some anniversary that was going on. And my editor at the time said, listen, it's Thursday. You're the only one with an EU passport. I was born in Denmark, so I've got a Schengen visa. He said, can you go to Poland in 2 days' time or something, Sunday, and just go find Chris Hani, Janusz Walush's family? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Because, of me, the pleaser, never want to disappoint anybody. So I literally get on a plane and I arrive at Warsaw Station. Yeah. And I start. I'm fucked. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. Right? Not like drinking, whatever.
Yeah.
So I start looking through the phone book, and
for real?
No, like, seriously. And I
You're on your own?
No, I'm completely on my own. I was meeting a cameraman later on at the station, and I phoned a family member. I'd spoken to his uncle, and he'd given me a piece of paper with a family member that he hadn't spoken to for years, who lived somewhere out in a farm near Krakow, which is quite a long way away from Warsaw. And I phoned them, and I said, I'm really sorry. I'm a journalist from South Africa, and I'm here to interview a family of Janusz Valus, and can you help? And they were absolutely, of course we'll help you. You get on the train, we'll meet you at the station, and they were really, really kind people.
Oh.
Anyway, long story short, I met them. They told me their version of the story. I understood communism. That wasn't struggle communism, a lot better. And I met his daughter. And she had not seen him since Janusz Valus, since she was about 2 or something. And she had a baby. And she loved her father, but they were all pretty horrified that a family member of theirs had done something so horrific.
Yes.
And then years later, when Valus, I kept on saying to the correctional services spokesman, please can I interview him? Please can I interview him? I had this thing about it. If I'm like a dog with a bone, I will phone, if I want an interview, I will phone every single day.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't give up for anything. Okay. And so they kept on saying, no, it's part of his parole conditions. He cannot speak. Anyway, his daughter came here. She was making a documentary. She contacted me. I said, could I interview you? Because she had to organize his deportation back to Poland when he was released, et cetera, et cetera. And she said to me, if he doesn't denounce his white supremacy, I'm not going to let him see his grandchild.
Oh, wow.
So he has a choice. She's a journalist. She's a lovely woman. And funny enough, he chose to go back to right-wing organizations in Poland, and he's renounced his family. He doesn't see them, which is really sad. But anyway, for them. But it was a very, very difficult interview. 2 reasons. One is I was terrified he was going to pull out. Okay. Yeah. So now your company sent you all the way. You've arranged all this over WhatsApp, the phone, blah, 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 blah. Money is a big deal, budget, right? This flight, the crew, the whole shebang, the visas. I go to this farmhouse. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's freezing cold. There was no heating. It was minus, I don't know, it was snowing. It was minus something. We all got big coats on. This creaky old farmhouse. There's this frail, very thin man who looks quite hungry, who's incredibly cordial and polite. He's clearly an older person.
Yes.
So now I'm not going to be extremely disrespectful to an older person. And I'm repulsed by what he's done, but I need to make him stay in the chair.
Yeah.
I also need to make sure that my fellow South Africans who are watching at home don't think that I'm being sympathetic towards him, because then I'm a sympathizer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm really in the shit. I need to keep him focused, and I need to keep him, so I can't be hostile to him either. So, and it's freaking cold. Yeah. So, and everybody's freezing, and everybody's staring at me, and everybody's staring at him. So what do I do? It's a very hard tone. Why did you kill? Why did you stand there and shoot a man in cold blood outside his house when you knew his child was inside? How could you do that? I had to do it. But I couldn't also say to him, I couldn't, it was hard.
Yes. And the fact that he feels no remorse and that sort of thing, how do you leave an interview like that?
So he sees himself as a soldier. He feels that his killing of Chris Hani is the same way that any other soldier would kill somebody in combat. That's how he feels. And funny enough, a very well-known ANC activist who has also killed people phoned me afterwards, and he said, I know he said he would do it again, but so would I. If I was in that war again and I was faced with the same decisions that I now for freedom, of our country, I would do the same thing.
It feels like you've seen a lot. Has anybody ever tried to bribe you to not run a story or to run a story?
No.
Never.
Never. I've never had any pressure from the newsroom either. I've never been told to do anything or say anything, or I'm very nice and I'm very polite and I'm very courteous person, but I'm very happy to say no.
What about threats?
Threats? Veiled, kind of. Probably for the Andre de Ruyter interview. And that's when politics... I mean, I've done so much gang work and that kind of stuff, and I've had the odd little threat here and there, but the only real threat I've ever had is from political stories.
Wow.
And not terrible, but just enough. Like the de Ruyter interview, I didn't know this at the time. I didn't even think the interview afterwards was going to be such a big deal, because actually he'd said a whole lot of things in the run up to it. We just sort of put it all together. But I saw Twitter blowing up, and then we were blacklisted, and there were banks calling me who had invested in the ANC, who was suddenly Chancellor House, and we suddenly were worried about the investments in the country, and I went to bed and I put the pillows over my head and I just went into lockdown. I was just, I'm not one of those journalists who then go onto every TV show and go yeah, so this is where, no, I've done the interview, it's done. I'm finished. Goodbye. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I'm only on TV because that's all I know how to do, right? If I could write, if I was a born writer, I would probably rather write. But my friends actually, unbeknownst to me, got a 24-hour security outside my house.
Oh, wow.
Which I didn't leave my house, so I didn't know. But they were concerned, from that.
What do you think of the state of journalism in South Africa? Are you one of those veteran journalism that looks at younger journalism and goes, journalism is going to the dogs?
No, because because I'm not an arrogant cow. People are everyone's doing their best. I like to believe that everybody is doing their best. I would say to younger journalists who are forced to stay in the office and stuck doing press releases and all the rest of it, fight against that. Go out and get stories. Go and talk to people. Everybody's got a story. So when I started out in journalism, and I don't want to be one of those old hacks to go, when I was we used to be sent to the Cape Town Magistrates Court on a Monday morning, and you come back with 3 stories. Now, if you go to Court 16, which is where all the bail applications are at the Cape Town Magistrates Court, or they used to be, you will find a billionaire who has crashed his Ferrari and is up for a DUI. Big story there. 1. You will find a gangster who's being kept for 50 rands worth of weed and can't get bail and is blocking up the whole prison system. 2. And the story... Everybody has got a story, everybody. And I don't blame the journalists for not getting those personal stories or doing field journalism. I blame the news bosses, because you've got to get people out telling their stories. That is what journalism is about. It's that old thing of, is it raining? Well, look out the window. Don't look out the window. Go outside and see for yourself. Maybe I screwed that up, actually, that whole little metaphor. But you know what I'm saying? It's go out and get the story. Everybody has got a story. And everybody wants to be heard, and everybody wants to be listened to, and everyone has got something to tell.
White woman, blonde.
Yeah.
You move into a gang territory.
Yeah.
Is this not scary?
No.
You're not
sometimes, if you feel like people are off their heads on tick or something, or on drugs. In fact, I often ask the guys, I say to them, if I was held up or, God forbid, hijacked or something like that. Is there anything I could say to make you think twice? And they say no, because the only thing we can think of is getting your stuff. There's nothing you could say, like, please think of my child, or, whatever. So I'm like looking for tips, God forbid anything would happen to me. No. So when I go in, I've asked permission to go in respectfully. And it's their turf. So if anything were to happen to me, the main thing that I would be concerned about is crossfire, because nobody can control that. At night there have been a few issues in Manenberg. It hasn't been great, but we're working. I have this false sense of bravery and stupidity when I have a camera with me. In the old days, I hate saying it, God, it sounds so awful, but there used to be this level of leave her alone, she's a journalist.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably somewhat of a, people think like, what the hell is this woman doing here? Rather than of a curiosity, rather than get her the hell out of here. And most people that I speak to in, say, gang areas are pleased that I've taken the trouble to come and talk to them generally. And they're also quite careful to look after us, because they wouldn't want something happening on their turf. So everything's run precinct by precinct.
Yeah.
So I will ask the gang leader, or I will ask a community leader to speak to the gang leader to say, I'm in your precinct, can I be there? I'm not just going to rock up and go, hey guys, I also, for instance, which I'm quite careful about, is when I see the guys and the gang guys are completely off their heads on drugs, and they're going like, I killed 10 people, and and I can see they're talking a lot of cuck.
Yeah.
I don't put that on camera, because they're out of their heads.
Yes.
They don't know what they're saying. They're talking a lot of rubbish, and they're going to get arrested tomorrow because of me. And I'm not there to, be sort of citizen's arrest or something. So there is a level of responsibility, and I think that for some reason, I think I've got a track record of trust.
Who would you rather share a meal with? A gangster, a politician, or would you rather just skip to Gayton McKenzie?
Well, I've shared a milkshake in a diner with Gayton McKenzie. I've had a braai with Gayton McKenzie. We spent a few days with him when he was the mayor of Beaufort West.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. Look, he's a very genial, he's a very fun guy to be around. You can ask him anything. I mean, I asked him whether he's killed someone, I asked him if he's raped somebody. He was very open to all questions. But once during the braai, this is before he was minister, he had these ex-convicts, former convicts who protect him and walk around with him, all going salute. He was.
This is wild.
I mean,
this is a mayor.
He insisted on like having a braai for us, and we went to the braai, and he said something or other which I just knew was blatantly untrue, and I said to him, "You are bullshitting me," and I felt the room stiffen slightly. There was like and I was like, "No, like, come on, like, seriously, like, you're taking me for." I don't want to say the word, but you're taking me for an asshole, like. Don't do that. And he was good-humored about it. He took it in his stride. Like, his security didn't like it, but he took it in his stride. I've got to give that to him. He's a good sport.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah. I mean, he was on that shoot anyway. Like, yeah.
Should journalists be public figures? Does the fame compromise credibility?
I don't think it compromises credibility, but I just don't think journalists are celebrities. I think good work should be celebrated, but I don't want to be I do Instagram and Facebook sometimes on the shoots that I'm doing, but I don't want people to know about my kids or my private life, or I'm not that interesting, like why would you want to know about that stuff? I just have a job like everybody else that I happen to love, and it's never felt like a job actually, which is why I think I'm still doing it like all these years later. I really don't buy celebrity about anyone.
In an interview,
I think it's actually a lot of shit.
In an interview with Jacob Zuma, he ended up saying that he'd call you back. Did he ever call you back? Does he have your number?
No, I have no idea. But I did once call him years ago. I think it was like in 2006 or something. And he answered the phone, and I said, "Hi, it's Annika Larsen here." And he said, "Who are you?" And I said, he was actually really, really cross. He said, "Who are you?" And I said, "It's Annika Larsen here." And he said, "How did you get my number?" And he said, I think he said something like, "Are you a spy?"
Oh, wow.
Something like that. He thought that he was very suspicious. Yeah. And I actually had to talk about, I said, I'm really sorry. He got really upset about it. And he's, in person, he's not like that. He's very, very funny and charming and all the rest of it. No, he did not phone me. But when I was 8 months pregnant, those were rough times in Pietermaritzburg during his trial. Like, I was 8 months pregnant, and his security guards, like, kicked me to the ground. It was rough. Wow. He didn't, but his security guys did. No, he didn't. But I do have one politician's number that I think I may need to call fairly soon.
Wait, who's the most famous person in your phone book? It's a phone book, even though it's in the phone.
I wouldn't call him a celebrated person, but a famous person, a well-known person, Donald Trump.
Oh, you've got Donnie's number?
I do.
Let's call him. Let's call the Don.
No. Okay, well, we have to work out, because we've thought about doing this. Is he East Coast or West Coast?
Don doesn't sleep. He's probably tweeting.
Check the time.
Let's call him and tell him to remove the blockade and the Strait of Hormuz.
And is it open today? Is it closed today? I'm not going to have the genocide debate with him, because
we'll just ask him to open. Like, it's affecting condoms, it's affecting perfumes from Dubai. We're just going, bruh.
Oh, my best was those, like, people were going, my Temu order's not going to get here. But I do have his number, and I'm a little bit nervous to call it, but I think I might. I don't know. I'll see. But he's the one person that I'd really like to interview.
You're involved in local elections?
The campaigns are starting.
Your impressions on Helen Zille and Herman Mashaba?
I think Helen's running a very, very good campaign. I think it's the first campaign that's going to be actually run on social media for Joburg Mayor. I think some of it's getting a little bit gimmicky, and I think that she needs to pace herself, because we're still several months away. Mm-hmm. And she works hard. I mean, we spent like a day or two with her, and I was exhausted by the end of it. I don't know how she keeps on going. I've got to give it to her. She's got a lot of energy, way more than I do. She's running a strong campaign, but as somebody in the little documentary that or the 30-minute that we put out now said, one person was very honest, and I think that they were under the influence, but they said, I can't vote for a white woman. I just can't. That's the truth. And I think for some people that is an issue, and I think he was speaking very truthfully. Other people are like Gogo. They all call her Gogo whenever she's a celebrity there. I mean, people stop her everywhere she goes. I think they just want to see things fixed. Herman Mashaba, he's very much playing the strongman role. He's like, do not cross me or you will face the wrath of my brutality. He's very much, he sees things very much in black and white, and he wants to fix things. The first time he went in as mayor, he just went and fired a whole lot of people, not realizing that there was an HR department upstairs that then just rehired everybody again. But as much as they really don't like each other at all, Herman blames Helen for him no longer being mayor, etc., etc., which she says is absolute nonsense, and that he resigned before he was pushed. There's a drive. They both have a drive that I have not seen many times before, as piercing as they both do. They both want that mayoral chain very badly.
There's a growing distrust in journalism. Why do you think that is?
Sure, that's a hard one. I think that so much of it is because it's armchair journalism. Because people aren't going out there and speaking to a whole lot of people, because it's become very superficial. It's become very thin. Look, I think a lot of it's got to do with budgets. I'm not blaming I don't think it's the journalist's fault per se, but I think, and I have to give it to eMedia here, I think I'm the only person that I can think of that has a permanent job and I'm allowed to do in-depth pieces that I choose to do. Yes. I can't think of another journalist who is given that privilege. And that says something, that means people aren't investing in it anymore. And I know people want to see the quick stuff on TikTok and everything. There's a place for it.
Yes.
But there's also a place for trying to understand the human condition and why rather than the what.
Do politicians get on very well with each other when the cameras are off?
Generally, they have, I would say, very cordial relationships. I'm not saying that compared to the hostility I saw in Congress and in the Oval Office, where certainly, perhaps that was performance-based too, I can't say, but certainly I found that, I feel like the word Ubuntu has been overused, but when you come back from a flight overseas, or for those of us who can travel, somebody's going to say on Twitter, oh, she can go overseas. When the immigration guy goes, welcome back. Welcome back. And you're like, oh, yes, I'm home. Like, hallelujah. There's that sense of like, it's like, like, pass a sandwich, have a scone. Like, there wasn't like a terrible hostility. No, it was I loved Parliament. It was a home to me. I was very happy there. And I felt I had really good relationships across the political spectrum, actually. And somebody once said to me, "Oh, she's a DA voter or something like that." And funny enough, that was the party that I didn't have a lot. They were very pleasant and very nice and all the rest of it, very cordial. But I found there was other parties that I probably spent more time with in committees and that sort of thing. It was a mixed bag, but generally it was a very nice, decent place. I wouldn't go as far as to say they would like have a bride together, but certainly in the bar, when it was open, there were quite a few like brandies and cokes being shared amongst all.
This was dope.
I know.
This was
Let's do it again.
Good. Yeah, let's do it again.
I know, we should. You can come over for supper. I love inviting people over.
I'll definitely come for supper. Yeah. But can I come hang out when you interview people and watch? Just to watch.
Yeah. I know that one of our friends who asked, and I said, of course, anytime.
For real?
Absolutely. I would like to learn stuff from you. So,
dope.
So like, it has to be a quid pro quo.
Okay, cool. Like, I'm down.
I'm very good at making deals.
Amazing. Oh, Donald Trump.
I'm good at making deals. The art of the
you're
deal.
going to make the best deal ever.
No, so you can come on any shoot with me if I can come on a shoot with you.
Oh, for real? Yeah. I'd love that.
Okay, divine.
Cool.
Be great.
Comrades, this was delicious. I had fun.
It's gone so fast.
And thank you. Yeah. I'm also like worried your way. Definitely over time
it went so fast.
But it was so delicious.